Oh, evaluation is incredibly important first for accountability, to be sure that people know what these banks are doing and where their money's going, and also for learning. If you don't evaluate and learn what works and what doesn't work, you're going to continue making the same mistakes.
And is it clear now, is it becoming clear for international development banks what does work in terms of funding projects?
Well, obviously the world's a very complex place, and there's many, many sectors and many complex issues around development. So it's hard to generalize, but I think for sure the evaluation processes that have been put in place in the multilateral agencies have led to a lot of learning and a lot of requirements and self-learning and self-evaluation and getting people in a mode to really track what they're doing. So I think it has a huge impact, actually.
And in terms of the indicators that banks like your own are using, are they becoming more mainstream around the world? Because I guess if everyone is evaluating their projects under different criteria, and I guess we've seen this in the UN climate talks where countries present their emission data, but they're all slightly different. Some have different baselines, some are percentages. Are those indicators that you're using becoming more mainstream, so it's easier to understand all around the world what projects are effective and what perhaps are less so?
There has actually been an effort for about 20 years now to standardize the way that the multilateral development banks at least evaluate their projects. And we have a group that meets very regularly of all the heads of the evaluation agencies in 10 groups. It's called the Evaluation Cooperation Group. And for 20 years or so, we've tried to standardize our approach. So if you're looking at how a project is evaluated at the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank or the Inter-American Development Bank or African Development Bank or EBRD, the European Bank, we all use pretty much the same approach. This differs a little bit from one bank to the other. It's not 100% comparable, but we share a lot of experiences. We do a lot of similar things, and you can certainly get a trend by looking across. Now, there's always more to do, and in climate change, indicators on the complex indicators around climate change, I think we're all still very much learning. And we're all doing evaluations to try to figure it out. And operational staff are learning from each other on how you can actually track climate change indicators. So there's a lot to learn, but I think it's fair to say over the last 20 years, the international development banks at least have really come together in how they think about evaluation, how they do evaluation.
Just a final one, in terms of the global kind of finance architecture around climate change, I guess this seems like we're coming to a critical year with the green climate funds perhaps coming online early next year. What's your assessment of climate finance flows at the moment? You speak to some people from developing countries and they still say that there's not much coming online, and then we speak to World Bank officials and they say that actually below the surface there's a lot bubbling away. So what's your take?
I must admit I'm not a specialist in this area. We do evaluations for the whole bank, so there are other people who would be able to say more. My sense is if the Green Climate Fund comes online, I think there was an original goal of something around $100 billion. I think the realistic estimates from what I hear are more in the $30 to $40 billion a year if we're lucky. It'd still be a great addition. I think there's a big emphasis, and hopefully the money will materialize, including the Green Climate Fund. It will put a lot more into the system. My sense is if you added it all up, there's quite a bit of money there. Certainly in Latin America, where I work, the governments themselves are putting a lot of effort into this. They take it seriously. And of course, it's not all money either. It's also the whole policy regime, the incentives that are created. A lot of progress is being made. And we have some of these countries in Latin America that are really on the forefront of thinking about technologies and renewable energy and policies for climate change, policies for disaster risk mitigation. Deforestation is being, big reductions in deforestation in the region, particularly Brazil and the aggressive things they've done. So my sense is there's progress, and the Green Climate Fund and new financing would certainly help on that. I hope it does come together. Seems to be some movement now. After maybe a little bit of slowdown, there seems to be some interest and some movement now, so let's hope.